And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning on KIDO Talk Radio. We continue on with our coverage of the big summit. Are you buying that the North Koreans really are down with peace, love, and understanding? President Trump is. Remember, coming up this week, Sean Hannity live in Singapore all this week. Your home for Sean Hannity is KIDO Talk Radio. And speaking of which, this is the last week of Win Kevin Miller's Cash on KIDO Talk Radio. All you have to do is listen at 6:05, 8:05, and 3:05 with Sean Hannity, and listen for the code word. Today's code word at 8:05 is beach. Beach. That's right, beach. There we have it. Only a few more days to win that up to $5,000. Go to KIDOTalkRadio.com for the very latest and to get entered to make this happen. And don't forget on Thursday, thank you Thursdays, your chance to win tickets to see the WWE for free. That's right. Details at KIDOTalkRadio.com. We're joined now by author John Tammy, the author of The End of Work, Why Your Passion Can Become Your Job. He's the editor of Real Clear Markets and director of the Center for Economic Freedom at FreedomWorks. John, you've got a lot of jobs.
That's right, Kevin. I can't get enough of work, and because I love to write, this is how I pay the bills.
Well, look, I've got a lot of respect for the organizations that you do work for. Before we get to the summit, and, we're going to have you back just to specifically focus in on your book, but The End of Work, Why Your Passion Can Become Your Job. I understand that, but on the other hand, you still have to pay the bills, and not everybody can, play for the 49ers.
No, you're absolutely right, and I very clearly acknowledge that in the book. That for me, in my case, my passion is writing, and I wanted to become a writer in the worst way, and so I took other jobs, including as a fundraiser for a nonprofit, to pay the bills so that I could write. Because no one was going to pay me right away. But gradually with time, I was able to make a profession out of it. And what I show in the book is that it doesn't matter what your passion is. If you follow it, there's a remunerative job with it. It will take time in some instances, but we happily live in a time and place where people can combine what they're interested in with lifelong work. And a greater endorsement of free enterprise would be hard for me to find.
Well, isn't writing the underappreciated profession? If you can write, and for most of us, myself included, John, writing is intimidating. You've got grammar, you've got prepositional phrases, you've got subjects and predicates and all these things. Most of us, at least, are intimidated by writing, but if you can write, you can work. Do you agree with that?
I do, and let me explain why. We've got the richest man on earth who agrees with the both of us. Jeff Bezos does not like people to come to him with ideas. He always says, write out your idea. And what his thought process, and this is something that I've experienced, is writing's the path to knowledge. Sometimes it just helps to put some ideas down on paper because that's what will bring you to a more clarified conclusion. And so I really think it's a healthy thing. I love doing it, and maybe I'm delusional, but I often find that the act of doing it brings me to new thoughts that I didn't know I had.
Okay, one more thought, and again, we're going to have to get you back on this because we do want to talk about the summit, the markets, and everything, but there is a market for people that are miserable at work. And you know the old saying, heck, John, you live it, that if if you do what you love, you'll never work another day in your life. But again, most of us are unhappy with our gigs.
But I do think that there's more and more of us like you and me. I think it's safe to say that you're living your dream too, getting to do what you do. And I think there's more of us. More and more of us know people who say they never intend to retire. And they don't simply because work is where they get to showcase their unique skills and intelligence. Is it 100%? Certainly not, but let's compare us to where we were 150 years ago. Back then, you pretty much knew your life path. You were going to work 6 days a week on a farm. And then thankfully technology freed lots of people from work on the farm. And so more and more of us get to do what we love on a daily basis. And if we allow free enterprise to continue to take hold, if we keep the size of government small, arguably the greatest gift of it is going to be such immense growth that there'll be that the people who get to live as we do will multiply.
John Tammy joining us, the author of The End of Work, Why Your Passion Can Become Your Job. I guess that would be the same for President Trump.
Yeah. When you think, and think about what President Trump is another example of this. He could have probably had a life of leisure had he chosen, but property was a passion for him. And he achieved mightily there. And then I would add the exciting thing about the time and place in which we're living is that people can have many careers simply because technology allows us to get good at something much more quickly. And so in Trump's case, he was able to use technology and use it very well. He's able to build an all-new career and a world-changing one within a matter of a year. Whether you love or hate Trump, it really is remarkable what he achieved in such a short time, and it's something he could not have done in the past. But again, thanks to technology, he was able to pivot pretty quickly and get his ideas out to a lot of people in a short amount of time.
Your thoughts on the little rocket man that's the president's new best friend and what happened yesterday?
My take has been, I'm curious what you think. I've always felt that why do we elevate these people? I thought it was a mistake with Fidel Castro. I think it's a mistake with Iran. I think that Rocket Man was desperate to be on the world stage, and Trump gave him the world stage. If Trump can cause them to denuclearize, wow, thumbs up, and he should be given enormous credit because, let's be clear, every president before him has failed in this regard. But I'm of the view that Democrat or Republican, we'd be more successful if we just ignored these clowns.
I would agree. What do you think the economic impact of this will be? Rumors of a united Korea, but as we've talked about before, you have the space age versus the Stone Age, human rights, the world's fastest internet, Samsung versus a regime that kills and starves its people.
Yeah, I mean, let's be clear. The economic impact for now is going to be pretty small. I mean, North Korea's economy is what the size of Fairfax, Virginia. It could be impressive only because we know from South Korea that when the Korean people are free, they can prosper, and they can prosper amazingly. I hope that's the end result. My frustration is I don't want Kim Jong-un to come out of this viewed as a statesman. I want him to die in prison. I want to see him tortured on the way to death. I think what he and his family have done to innocent people for decades is genocide on a grand scale. And I don't want the U.S. associated with this awful, awful man. What he's done to people is incalculable. And so I want the North Koreans to be free, but I also want Kim Jong-un in prison. I hate that he may come out of this popular and globally important.
Well, you could see that last night with the coverage, how soon we forget what a reprehensible human being that Kim is. You saw that with the coverage last night, and with all due respect to the president, him embracing this guy.
Yeah, and I understand. I respected Trump's point that he'll talk to anyone. That's never bothered me, but I'm sorry. I've never bought into the idea, and foreign policy is not my thing, but economics is my thing. Countries this backwards don't have the economy to represent a threat to much of anyone. Where would they get the means to stage any kind of reasonable war? And I think and I felt the same thing about Korea or Cuba. Why did we elevate that awful human being in Fidel Castro? But we made him a global hero by making him the enemy. And I think what the message Trump is sending is, if you're an idiot world leader, get nukes any way you can, and you can get a message with the president of the United States and get legitimacy. In Trump's defense, look, every American president has elevated these clowns in Iran, Cuba, you name it. I just don't like it. I think it's a mistake.
John, Tammy with us, the end of work, why your passion can become your job. We could talk to you forever. We do want to get you back. And look, I'm going to go to Amazon and purchase your book because I think it's important, especially when you're talking about the importance of writing. And people always ask you or me or others, what can they do? I think, as someone said to me many years ago, the most important thing you can do is to write. Again, underappreciated, but so uniform when it comes to work. What would be your advice to someone right now? I mean, you see ads on the internet. Hey, do this, do internet marketing, blah, blah, blah. Always, everything always seems too good to be true. You're a grinder. For people that aren't happy where they are, that want to live the dream that you're living, John, what would you tell them?
I would say think long and hard about what it would pain you not to do. And I really do believe if you find what that is, it may take a couple trials, it may take a couple different jobs, but eventually you'll happen on a job that you fall in love with. Now, to be fair, that wouldn't have been true 25 years ago. But it's increasingly true today that pretty much anything is possible. And so don't listen to the get rich quick or too good to be true ads. Just think about be true to yourself. What is it that you enjoy? And be willing to take a lot of other jobs in order to pay the bills to get to the point where you can make a living doing what you enjoy. That's what I did. It's supposed to be easy, but then happiness isn't supposed to be easy. If it were easy, it wouldn't be happiness. It is very hard. I had a lot of lean years on the path to getting to write books, but oh my gosh, it's worth it. And I'm not unique, and I'm unique. I'm a fairly ordinary person. I was a lazy person. I'd been laid off. All the things, all the demotions that other people go through, I went through that to get to where I am today, and other people can do it.
Well, John, thank you, and you have a great day, sir.
Thank you, Kevin, for having me on. This was great.
And look, we're having you back, okay? Get ready.
Anytime.
Thank you, John. Take care. John Tamny joining us on KIDO Talk Radio. Coming up, the former chairman of the state Republican Party, Steve Yates, will be in studio. Also, John Decker will join us live from Singapore. Sean Hannity live from Singapore. So we've got the latest local, state, and national news with you talking about it. And we'll hear from Tom in Nampa as well. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go to the phones. Tom in Nampa, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Oh, good morning, Kevin. Well, this is truly a historic moment, and I think what some people don't realize, I think we ought to just ignore these countries, is that, Fidel Castro, his little gulag was propped up by constant aid from the Soviet Union, likewise, I think, for North Korea by China. So, it's not one of these situations where we can just ignore them. And I keep in mind, too, now Kim was about half Trump's age? So he's lived only under a system in which he has been fed propaganda, by his father and others around him that the United States is an evil, horrible country. And so right away, I think when the ice is broken by Trump and him meeting, I think it sets the stage for probably some real accomplishments, because economically they can't continue to pour a lot of money into trying to nuclear arm in North Korea there. So I think it's in his best interest to, try to come to some kind of agreement with the United States. And I think one thing President Trump has proven by this summit, that he can be the diplomat when he needs to be. And this Nancy Pelosi, isn't that laughable, her saying that the president is giving too many concessions? Doesn't that make you... This is a woman who spent 8 years as an apologist for a president of the United States that gave away the store. And Nancy Pelosi lecturing, saying Donald Trump gave too many concessions is about as ridiculous as a pig farmer lecturing a rabbi on the virtues of kosher meats. I mean, it's crazy. So it's just amazing how, his detractors won't give him any kind of credit, and they got to psychoanalyze his, all the body language and all that. And I don't think anybody's been put under the microscope more than Donald Trump. And I think he is, demonstrating very, very well that he can be president of the United States in this situation. And so it just remains to see where it goes from here. Are you still there?
You know, Tom, those are great points, especially about Feinstein and Pelosi. Thank you for the call. Traffic and weather together, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave. And we're joined by our great friend, Steve Yates, former chairman of the state Republican Party, former member of the Bush White House, a man of the world, an expert on Taiwan, that part of the country, but our friend. Welcome back, sir.
Thank you, Kevin. Good to be with you.
You know, how many interviews have you been doing? You've been going nonstop on this issue.
About 5 or 6 in the last 24 hours.
Right.
All the talk getting ready for the big meeting. The big meeting happens. It's the middle of the night for us.
Right.
President having a press conference in the middle of the night. So, it's been an interesting cycle. And obviously some consequential things moving.
The BBC, the Fox News channel.
I shared off air with you the BBC. It's fun to interact from Idaho with people in the UK about something going on in Singapore. But really, a lot of the establishment media around the world is just dripping with disdain about President Trump and how could he do this. And apparently the world has ended because he met with Kim Jong-un in Singapore and said that they're going to pursue peace, and it wasn't defined well enough for these liberals who had none of these tough questions for Barack Obama when the Iran deal was coming along.
Well, we got and Ben Rhodes, who said they had a little fun with fiction.
Yeah.
I have to ask you though, you worked very hard to restore the Republican Party in the state. Candidate for lieutenant governor, a narrow decision that didn't go your way. How are you doing personally, and what's it like in the post-primary political world?
Well, it was a close outcome, and I live my life without regrets. Everything happens for a purpose. We pray every day to get some sense from the divine what that purpose is, and learn, and you move forward. And I have in some ways a sense of relief, having worked extraordinarily hard for the last several years on politics in Idaho. I took some time off, went to Colorado to visit with my daughter, who's turning 20 soon, and performing this verb now called adulting. And Dad's still trying to help guide the direction to make sure that the bowling alley has bumpers on the sides, and but had a nice unplug. Took a break completely from politics and things here, and just had some good quality time with my kids. My kids are special in every sense of the world. They mean a great deal to me, and they are a challenge and a blessing, all rolled into one egg roll there.
Right, and again, so you were in the real world for a while.
Yeah. And it was refreshing.
Right.
So, I have a lot of things going on in my professional and personal life that I am giving more attention to. I obviously care about the Republican Party generally, and in Idaho, there's a convention coming up in Pocatello soon. Be an important test to see what the strength and health of the party is going through this general election cycle, and where our statewide candidates are in supporting that party going forward. But that's not my job. My job is to support the people who are currently in leadership, and to go about my business. And we'll continue to try to bring economic opportunity to Idaho from other states and from the people I deal with around the world. And we actually have some visitors in town this week that are talking about those kinds of opportunities. So in some ways, more of the same. Happy to be back with you and to talk about not just politics, but some other things too. And it's been a nice refresher getting back into the swing of talking about some things that are big part of my life and a passion of mine about big things happening in the world. And for whatever anyone wants to say about Donald Trump, he is shaking things up not just in Washington, but around the world. And everyone is just fast and furiously trying to figure out what does this all mean. And I think it's exciting.
More coming up with Steve Yates, plus John Decker live from Singapore next. You're listening to 580 AM, 107.5 FM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave. KIDO Talk Radio. John Decker will be joining us live from Singapore. By the way, for people listening on our videos or watching, I've got my prescription that needs to be refilled. Our great friend Steve Yates with us. I wasn't offering you any opioids or anything, but How big a deal is this? You are an expert in Southeast Asia and Asian affairs. Your thoughts on what happened yesterday?
Well, it's a big deal, but we have to a degree, curb our enthusiasm. We're at the beginning of a process. The president made that very clear in his own statements. It was historic to have the meeting. It was a meeting of the minds of sorts between President Trump and Chairman Kim. And they set their top people off to do follow-up. That's kind of a conventional summit process.
Sure.
Which is odd given that we have a very unconventional president meeting with a very unconventional counterpart. So I think that this was a very positive move. I don't think that we have peace in our time, to use a famous phrase from an era gone by, but we're no worse off. The North Koreans for the last 60-plus years have talked every day about an imminent invasion from Americans. And the pageantry of this summit, while some say, well, it's a concession to him, it profoundly undermines North Korean propaganda in some important ways. And unlike the Clinton and Bush administrations, nothing was really given up before going into this summit by the United States. And so we're talking about what implementation will look like. John Bolton is a longtime friend and probably the most experienced, smartest person in the United States government ever on what verification of a nuclear disarmament process should be. So I feel pretty good about where this could go.
And let's go live to Singapore. Our great friend John Decker, Fox News Radio on KIDO Talk Radio, joins us now with the very latest. John, good morning.
Hey, good evening for me, Kevin. How are you doing today? It's been a long day, a historic day here in Singapore. President Trump meeting one-on-one, face-to-face with Kim Jong-un hours ago. In fact, the president's heading back to the U.S. right now on Air Force One, and Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State's remaining in the region. He needs to essentially brief America's allies about what took place during both the one-on-one meeting the president had with Kim Jong-un and the expanded bilateral with a number of other top U.S. officials. But out of this meeting came an agreement signed by both President Trump and Kim Jong-un. It largely amounts to an agreement to continue discussions. And for Kim Jong-un, there was a reaffirmation of his commitment to complete denuclearization.
John, what was it like to witness that in person, to be on the ground? You see the president all the time. Well, relatively speaking, Kim Jong-un does not go out in public. Again, the cameras can only tell us so much, but being on the ground there, did you pick up the significance of the event? Was this Nixon goes to China?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's an apt comparison. I think it's very much like that. I think for many people, just, look back even 9 months in terms of the rhetoric that was being leveled by President Trump at Kim Jong-un and being returned by Kim Jong-un to President Trump. And I don't think anybody could have forecast that this one-on-one meeting, this summit would have occurred in Singapore. Here we are on June the 12th. So in that sense, it's pretty remarkable what happened today. Historic meeting involving a sitting U.S. president for the first time meeting with his counterpart from North Korea.
Many people are wondering about the future of U.S. troops in South Korea and the move towards denuclearization. Obviously, John, easier said than done, and you saw that being discussed and agreed to last night.
Well, that's right. This is an agreement signed by both President Trump and Kim Jong-un, but in this agreement, the word verify or verification is missing. There's no verification procedure or measures that have been set up to back up the promises that Kim Jong-un made. Now, it's just a first meeting. That can happen, of course, down the road. But I think it's telling to a certain extent that was not included in this agreement, this document signed by both of these leaders.
And John, a personal reflection of being there at that moment, being there right now, your thoughts? Well,
for me, I feel very fortunate that I was here for this summit in the sense that it was historic. And I think that what President Trump said today during his press conference is true. His predecessors were unable to do this kind of a meeting. And I think it speaks a lot to his abilities as a negotiator and also his commitment to try to resolve this crisis that this took place under his watch in his first year and a half in office.
John Decker, we know you're extremely busy. Safe travels home, and We always appreciate your insights, sir, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks for having me on your show, and I'll talk to you real soon from back in Washington.
Take care, sir. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
What you love about John Decker is he always says bye-bye.
Yeah, well, that's a real call.
I don't think you ever say goodbye. You just, you're such a pro. Anyway, Steve Yates joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning here. We'll get to your calls at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. As a member of the Bush administration, you've dealt with these talks at this level, correct?
Well, there was never a consideration in the Bush administration about a presidential level meeting.
But
with
they did
Kim
ask you about
Jong-il.
Korea, and you
but
studied
we did.
them, right?
But we were part of the process where we had what was called then the six-party talks,
Right.
and we had a presidential envoy and Ambassador Chris Hill going back and forth to the region, shuttle diplomacy, lots of different engagement. And earlier in the process, we had Assistant Secretary Jim Kelly go to North Korea for a confrontation about the evidence we had about them cheating the agreed framework that was put in place in the Clinton administration. And he was a very experienced policy expert, former military officer, fully expected Kim Jong-il to lie. And Kim Jong-il and his staff basically said, yep, we cheated. And we were almost stunned with the reports back to Washington about, wow, they acknowledged what they had done, and we struggled internally to come up with a coherent approach to this challenge. And, of course, in the second term when I was no longer in office, deals were made and all kinds of promises of verification. There was a destruction of a facility, and lots of money and assistance went to North Korea, and they continued to cheat. So President Trump has the benefit of the failures of the past to be sober about what to expect and what to watch out for. But you just get a sense that there's something historically and strategically different about this moment and what they're trying to do. Maybe there'll be the same kind of outcome of the past, but we're no worse off if that's the case, because not trying this kind of a move by an unconventional president leaves us with a dire proliferation and military challenge.
We go to the phones. Joined now by Tea Party Bob at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. How are you today?
Living the dream, and you?
You're always living the dream. I think you're just a dreamer at heart. Well, it looks like President Trump has once again delivered to the American people with the beginning of the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. Let's hope that Kim Jong-un has actually accepted the olive branch that the president has offered him and begins to reformulate the future of his country to one of prosperity instead of one of despair. You know, the libs are going absolutely nuts and trying to find any excuse to say that it's a bad deal. If this deal comes to fruition, it's going to be the end of the liberal progressives as we know them, and we may actually be able to look forward to many years of conservative Republican rule. You know, Trump's proved that you can get more using the carrot and the stick rather than just throwing carrots at these third world countries run by diabolical dictators. I do believe that we actually may be headed for a new era of world peace and prosperity. Trump's next challenge is going to be to reel in the Iranian nuclear program, which I believe is much more dangerous than Korea ever was. But to do that, he's going to need the cooperation of the Europeans to apply the proper sanctions that we actually had, and the more effective, before Obama signed that stupid treaty. As far as Trudeau's rant about unfair trade, I will bet that this guy will lose the next election and Canada will move back towards a more conservative stance with cooperation with the U.S. He's going to bring, Trump is going to bring a new fairness of trade back to the American economy, even if it means stepping on the toes of the global corporate giants run by K Street and want open borders. The voters need to come out in droves in November to support this president by electing a bulletproof majority in the Senate and the House if he's going to continue to move us forward.
I think you're
as
covering
a leader of the world.
I think you're covering every topic today.
I tried to. You know, this was a difficult day. I stayed up late last night listening to what was going on.
You sound tuckered there, little buddy.
Yeah, I was up until about 1 o'clock. I don't usually do that. I like to get to bed a little earlier, but it was worthwhile listening to what was going on, and I love to see the libs go nuts. So this was worthwhile for me.
Well, that's reassuring.
Well, it's reassuring to have you back on the air there talking with Mr. Yates. How is Mr. Yates doing, by the way?
He's a big fan of your work.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not so good. Just depends on who you ask.
Well, I can't shake a stick at the analysis and the hopes about where the Canadian politics go and the historic moment we're witnessing now. It just comes down to the follow through.
Yeah, that's true. And I'll tell you, we haven't had an awful lot of presidents who follow through, but this one, as I said, I know this guy, smartest guy I've ever met. He is going to follow through on this so long as he has the support. And right now he's got it. So we'll see where it goes.
Oh, we'll see where you go.
Well, you guys have a wonderful day. Just keep on trucking, baby.
All right, Tea Party Bob, jumpstatepatriot.com. Phone number is 580-5436. 580-KIDO. He did seem pretty tuckered.
Well, he's been hard at work covering the waterfront.
Watching TV.
I think might be some interwebs, too.
I see. More coming up next with our great friend Steve Yates. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. And more of your phone calls coming up. Kevin Miller in the morning at KIDO Talk Radio. Our great friend Steve Yates joining us. How do people in that region, whether it's Taiwan, whether it's China, whether it's South Korea, how do they view the North Koreans?
Well, it's a bit of a mixed bag. A lot of places I've gone in Asia over the years, there are people who come and go to North Korea that are involved in trade. They haven't had the same kind of isolation over the last 20 years that a lot of us would expect. It is an isolated country, but there's been a lot of Asian tourism and business people that have come and gone.
Wait a minute, tourism? I'm sorry to interrupt,
yeah.
but you go there and, the streets are empty, apparently? I mean, what do you do?
It's an odd thing. I mean, people will go and they'll take tours. They'll go to Pyongyang. They'll go to some historic sites that are things that are remnants of the Korean War. There's a whole basket of things, but they're also North Koreans that are in a lot of these other countries. In Japan, there are these pachinko parlors, and I don't expect everyone knows what one of those is, but it's a little bit of a gambling enterprise, and one could imagine
like Bunko or Binko or
yeah.
whatever.
They make a lot of noise. I have no interest in them.
Right.
But there are North Koreans that are engaged in above board and below board economic activity in China, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Southeast Asia. And it was really kind of odd, and I assume a positive thing, that Kim Jong-un, when he had some tourism time, he went to the Sands in Singapore, which is a Sheldon Adelson-owned big integrated resort, quote unquote. So there's some gambling involved, and maybe he's envisioning that something like this is the future of North Korea, which boggles my mind. But when people in the region, they see it as a military threat, they see it as a source of uncertainty and stability. It's a major source of cyber attacks. And at the same time, they really wish that something could be done to get past this more than half-century-old history. And, the rest of Asia is striving to move in a more positive direction, where the big question is the direction of China, not North Korea.
Let's go to the phones. We go to Bob in Caldwell at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Kevin. Thank you for your sharing with everybody what you do. It's really a pleasure to listen to you and get some insight. A remarkable time that we're living in right now, and I think that most Americans are grateful for all the positive changes that have happened in the last year and a half. I just wanted to make an observation, and that is that if people are limiting themselves to what they see on MSNBC and the Tony Awards and Robert De Niro and that kind of stuff, they really get a jaundiced view of what the minority of this country has to say. And if you ask any of these people, what are you excited about that's happened in the last 18 months, or how much hope you hold out for success in North Korea, they aren't going to come up with anything positive in any way, shape, or form, because it's a direct conflict to their ideology and their hope for our race to the sewer. So it's a fool's errand to have a discussion with any of these people. At my counsel to anybody that asks about what people say, this, that, or the other thing, is that lions don't spend a lot of time with chipmunks and squirrels. And that's basically what you see broadcast against your television screen. So I would just ignore it. I wouldn't pay one tiny bit of attention to it. I think they're just screaming for some kind of a Well, Bill Maher is a perfect example. He hopes for an economic crash. So there you have it. I just think it's fodder for seventh graders. And if you don't want to join that club, I would just not pay any attention to it.
Bob, thank you for the thoughts and listening to KIDO Talk Radio.
Have a good day.
You too.
Well, I think he's really on track.
Then again, you're on TV all the time. Maybe you're part of it.
I try, but I can say that I have never and don't anticipate ever going on Bill Maher's show. And there is a bit of an echo chamber that just reinforces, I think, a pathological hatred for the idea of this president. And there's literally nothing he can do that will ever be good in their view.
They seem to take it personally.
It is personal for them, and I think the caller was right. This is their world coming crashing down on them. All these things that their self-reinforcing friends have told them, this is reality. It's not reality, and that in what used to be called flyover America, there's certain things we can sort of see for ourselves, and values that we still hold, and hopes for the future of our country and the world, and this president, whatever anyone wants to say about his flaws, and we all have flaws, his get more on display than some of the rest of us, thankfully. But he's done some big things, and you go down the list of the Supreme Court, tax reform, the rebalancing of alliances, being willing to go to the G7 and say, you know what, I'm not going to sit here and listen to you guys try to thump me. I'm going to leave. And it's refreshing to most Americans to say, I'm going to be for America. I'm going to be for our economic vitalization. And you want to make a deal? Let's make a deal. You want to just thump me and make me a chump here in public? I'm moving on. And he did move on, went halfway around the world, and did something that no previous president has been able to do in the last half century. And so it's not over. It's the beginning. But this is big, and liberals are having a horrible time trying to digest it.
Traffic and weather together, 580 AM, 107.5 FM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Dave. As someone who has served in the Bush White House, and you have friends in the Trump administration, what's it like for them? President Bush, as you know, sir, did not have an easy ride, but what's it like for them where you have Sarah Sanders attacked personally, where you have the president's marriage attacked personally? Very different from what we saw with the love taps that the media gave the Obama administration for 8 years.
Well, it's definitely night and day in terms of Obama versus Trump. And you're right. As rough as it felt in the Bush White House, especially in that first term, you felt under siege. First, it was the Supreme Court elected the president, and the W was removed from the keyboard in the vice president's office among the staff, and all kinds of strange silliness, protests. You go through the Code Pink and all of that business. So we did feel like it was unfair, unlevel playing field, but it's just worlds apart. This is a wild, every day, every hour attack on this president.
Well, and then you see a lot of people that served in the Bush White House. Yep. They're not fans of this president.
There are several, but there are a lot of people I know that served at the same time I did that were part of the transition team. Some of them are parts of the administration. There are several of us that are not in the administration, but try to be as helpful as we can from the outside. When we served, we relied upon help from good people on the outside that had experience, and so we try to return the favor, pay it forward, as they say. So, I feel for the people that are on the inside. It is, they walk out of that complex in downtown D.C., and you feel like you're just being watched and under assault, just the hate eyeballs looking at you everywhere you go.
And yet they continue to do it. Let's talk about the future of this administration. What, if anything, do you think will be gained? Did the president give away too much by saying, these joint exercises, we're going to put those on hold? That was a big get for Kim, I thought.
We'll see what that actually means in implementation. These exercises have been on again, off again, but consistently held over many, many decades. There has been talk about our footprint on the Korean Peninsula for a very, very long time, and the president has raised that. And the South Korean government has differing opinions about what our footprint should be. I'm not as worried about that. I mean, we look at what this president does. He engages in a deal, and if you waver from the deal on the other side, he'll back out or he'll change the terms. And I think Kim Jong-un is probably pretty sober about it. The fact that this president was willing to hit Syria at key times, the fact that he was willing to walk away from the Paris Accord and other kinds of international deals, and is upsetting the Iran deal, I think Kim Jong-un has to know he's dealing with a very different kind of president.
Mr. Yates, what's next for you?
Well, it's just another day in paradise. Gonna be here in the Treasure Valley for a couple of days, and then start traveling a bit for parts of the summer.
No, we're always trying to recruit you to just permanently move everybody over here.
Well, I've got a few different votes in my household on that. My wife is a teacher at a charter school and loves what she does, so we'll have to see how that works out.
Duly noted. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Kevin Miller in the morning, Rabbi. Great job as always. Want to remind everybody your chance to win tickets to the WWE for free. Listen Thursday to win those tickets. Good day. God bless. Keep the faith.